You hatched from an egg attached to your father's leg somewhere in the Antarctic Ocean. You're a tiny larvae with only 3 pairs of stubby limbs, not the 8 long legs you'll grow later. Hundreds of other larvae break free at the same time, and all of you swarm off his body at once. The current pulls you away from him immediately, and you start drifting through the water with your limbs paddling in short, jerky bursts. Then something large moves through the cloud of larvae around you. It's a comb jelly, with long, sticky tentacles trailing behind its body, and dozens of your siblings get caught in the strands as you paddle harder with your 3 pairs of limbs and manage to slip past its body just before the tentacles sweep through your path. You need to find food and somewhere to stay, so you keep drifting until you spot a hydroid colony attached to a nearby rock. It looks like a cluster of tiny branching stems with small polyps at the ends. You paddle toward the closest polyp and latch onto it with your mouth, gripping tight with your front limbs. But then another larvae appears and tries to claim the same polyp, bumping into your side and pushing you back. You both struggle for position, limbs tangling together as you fight to stay attached. You manage to pierce the polyp's soft flesh first with your mouth and start feeding, draining the fluids from inside its body. Your sibling loses its grip and drifts away to find another host. You stay clamped to the polyp and keep feeding, your body starting to swell as you take in nutrients. You'll stay attached here for weeks while your body grows and changes. But eventually you'll need to leave and find your own way across the seafloor. You're 2 weeks old now, and your body has become too tight for your exoskeleton. The pressure builds until your shell finally splits open along your back. So you start pulling yourself free with your limbs pushing against the old casing. You crawl out slowly with each leg coming loose one at a time. And when you're finally free, you have 4 pairs of legs instead of 3. The new exoskeleton is soft at first, but starts hardening as you move. You need to leave the hydroid now and find your own food. So you drop off the stem and start walking across the rocky surface for the first time. Your legs are long and spindly compared to your tiny body, making each step awkward as they tangle with each other while you try to coordinate the movement. After a few clumsy steps, you spot a smaller hydroid polyp growing on a nearby rock. So you move toward it and grab the stem with your front legs. You bite into the polyp's body with your proboscis and start draining the fluids inside, feeding slowly as your digestive juices break down the tissue. But then, a small amphipod scuttles across the rock toward you, and it's bigger than your body. It moves closer and tries to push you off the polyp with its legs shoving against your side. So you grip tighter and swing your proboscis toward it like a weapon. The sharp tip stabs at the amphipod's shell, making it back away and leave you alone. You finish draining the polyp until there's nothing left inside. Then you crawl under a rock ledge and press your body flat against the surface. Your legs are getting longer with each molt, but your body stays small and vulnerable. Soon you'll be able to reach places other creatures can't, and that's when hunting will get easier. You're 1 month old now, and you've molted again, so you have all 8 legs spread wide across the rocks. You're walking across the seafloor with your legs spanning much wider than your tiny body, searching for something to eat. That's when you spot a small sea anemone attached to a rock ahead, its tentacles waving slowly in the current. You need food, so you move toward it carefully with your front legs reaching out first. You grab the anemone's base with your legs and pierce its body with your proboscis, then start pumping digestive fluids inside to break down the tissue. The anemone's tentacles thrash around and one wraps around your leg, making its stinging cells fire against your exoskeleton. But the stings don't go through your hard shell, so you hold your position and keep feeding while the anemone struggles beneath you. The feeding takes nearly an hour because you have to liquefy everything inside before you can drink it. When you're finally done draining the anemone completely, you pull your proboscis out and start backing away. But then another sea spider appears from behind a nearby rock, and it's slightly larger than you with longer legs. It moves toward the empty anemone and checks it with its front legs, trying to see if there's anything left to eat. You spread your legs wider and raise your front pair up to make yourself look bigger, So the other spider stops and watches you for a moment. Then it turns and walks away across the rocks without trying to fight, leaving you alone at the feeding spot. You stay there for a while longer before moving on, walking slowly with your 8 legs carrying you across the stones. Your legs keep growing longer with each molt, and soon you'll be big enough to fight for the best feeding spots instead of backing away. You've reached 3 months old now, and you've walking across the seafloor when you spot a large sponge colony covering several rocks ahead. You need to find a good feeding spot that will last for days. So you climb onto the sponge's surface with your legs gripping the porous texture. You pierce the sponge tissue with your proboscis and start pumping digestive fluids inside, then begin draining the liquefied tissue slowly. This meal is rich enough to keep you fed for days if you can hold the territory. So you stay on the same spot and keep feeding. On the second day, another sea spider appears and climbs onto the same sponge on the opposite side, then starts feeding just like you. You both drain different sections of the sponge without coming near each other at first, but over time, you both follow the richest parts of the tissue and start moving closer together. Eventually, you meet in the middle where the sponge is thickest, and you both stop feeding and raise your front legs up at the same time. The other spider pushes against you with its legs trying to shove you backward, but your legs are longer, so you push harder and knock it off balance. It tumbles down the side of the sponge and moves away to a different section, leaving you alone at the best feeding spot. You continue draining the sponge tissue for another day until the area around you starts to die and turn gray. The tissue stops producing fluids, so you pull your proboscis out and start walking away across the rocks. You need to find fresh hunting grounds now because this sponge is finished. Your legs keep growing longer with each molt, and you're learning that when to see spiders want the same food, the one with longer legs usually wins. You're 6 months old now, and your body has become too tight again, so you need to molt. You find a sheltered spot between 2 rocks and stop moving. Then your exoskeleton splits along your back and you start pulling yourself free. Your legs come out one at a time, with each one sliding slowly through the old shell. And when you finally crawl free, your legs are even longer than before, spanning nearly twice your body length. But your new exoskeleton is soft and vulnerable, so you need to stay hidden until it hardens. That's when a fish swims overhead, scanning the seafloor below. And it's a small Antarctic cod looking for something to eat. You freeze completely with your legs splayed flat against the rock, staying as still as possible while your soft body is exposed. The fish circles once, with its shadow passing over you. Then it moves closer and starts inspecting something nearby. You remain still with your legs pressed tight against the rock, waiting for the fish to leave. Then the fish snaps at a swimming amphipod and swallows it, so it turns away from you and keeps swimming across the seafloor. Over the next few hours, your exoskeleton slowly hardens and becomes stronger, so you start testing your new legs by lifting them one at a time. Your legs are now longer and stronger than they were before the molt, making it easier to reach across gaps between rocks and hold on to larger prey. You start walking across the seafloor with your longer legs carrying you faster than before, searching for your next meal. You're getting bigger with each molt, but so is everything else that notices you moving across the rocks. The seafloor is crowded with creatures that hunt for food just like you do, and some of them are much larger than you are. You're 1 year old now, and you've been walking across the seafloor when you come across a female sea spider feeding on a coral polyp. She's larger than you with a swollen body full of developing eggs, so you know she's ready to mate. You need to pass on your genes before you die, so you move toward her carefully with your legs taking slow steps across the rock. She stays in place and keeps feeding without running away or attacking you, so you climb onto her back and grip her body with your legs. She carries you for several minutes while she continues draining the coral polyp, moving slowly across the surface. Then you position yourself over her underside and transfer sperm packets to her body, holding them in place until they stick. The process takes only a few moments and happens without any signals or sounds. Then you dismount and walk away across the rocks. She walks away in the opposite direction without looking back at you or making any movements towards you. A few weeks later, you pass by the same area and see her again, but now her legs are covered in hundreds of egg clusters glued tightly to her limbs. She moves slowly now because the weight of all the eggs makes it harder to walk, so she has to drag her legs across the rocks. You've passed by her several more times over the following days, and each time she's in a different spot, still carrying the eggs on her legs. She feeds less often now because moving is difficult, but she stays near the same area, waiting for the eggs to hatch. You continue hunting alone across the seafloor, walking past her without stopping. You've passed on what you needed to, and now the only thing that matters is staying alive as long as possible. You're 18 months old now, and you're walking across the seafloor when a strong current suddenly picks up and starts pushing against your body. You try to grip the rocks with your legs, but the water is too strong, making your long legs catch the current like sails. The force rips your legs free from the rocks and starts dragging you across the seafloor, tumbling you over stones and past sponges. You get dragged through a forest of hydroids with your legs tangling in the stems. Then you slam hard into a large boulder. Your legs scramble desperately for something to hold on to, so you manage to wedge yourself into a crack in the rock. The current keeps pushing against you for hours while you stay jammed in the crack. But eventually it calms down, and the water becomes still again. You need to find food, so you crawl out of the crack and start walking across the rocks into unfamiliar territory. The rocks here look different and are covered in organisms you haven't seen before, making everything around you strange and unknown. You're hungry and confused about where you are, so you keep walking until you spot a small nudibranch moving slowly across a rock. You've never eaten one before, but you need food, so you move toward it and grab its body with your front legs. You pierce its soft flesh with your proboscis and start draining the fluids inside. But then the nudibranch releases something from its body that makes the water around you turn cloudy. You keep feeding anyway with your proboscis still stuck in its body, draining everything until the nudibranch stops moving. The area around you is much emptier than where you lived before, with fewer sea spiders competing for food. But empty territories can mean there's something dangerous nearby that keeps other creatures away. You're 2 years old now, and you're walking slowly across a barren patch of seafloor with your legs spanning, nearly 10 times your body length. Your movement is smooth and efficient because you've been walking this way for years. So you move forward with each leg placing itself carefully on the rocks. You spot a cluster of sea anemones growing ahead, so you need food and start moving toward the largest one with your front legs reaching out first. Just as you get close enough to grab the anemone, something suddenly comes up from the sand below you. It's a starfish that was buried and waiting beneath the surface, and one of its thick arms wraps around your leg and starts pulling. You try to back away by pushing against the rocks with your other legs, but then 2 more arms grab your other legs and hold you in place. The starfish's mouth starts pushing outward from the center of its body, coming up towards you while its arms keep pulling you downward. You stab at its thick armored surface with your proboscis trying to pierce through, but the hard plates protect it, and your strikes don't do anything. Your legs splay out at impossible angles as the starfish drags you closer, making your joints bend backward as you try to resist. But your long legs can't generate enough force to pull free, so the starfish keeps dragging you down toward its opening mouth. Slowly and steadily, you get drawn into the opening with your legs folding and breaking as your body gets compressed into the starfish's stomach. Your proboscis keeps stabbing uselessly while the starfish pulls you all the way inside, and then everything stops moving. Above you on the seafloor, the current keeps moving across the empty rocks where you were standing just moments before. Life as a sea spider might be rough, but there's another animal out there that has it way worse. Trust me, it's wild. Check out the video and see for yourself.